Thank you. Let me know.
All good.
All right, it is time to call to order this meeting of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee of the Town of Collingwood. It's 5 o'clock. And today we acknowledge that that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe peoples, and on lands connected with the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to our society. And I will ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. It is moved by Councillor Comey and seconded by Mayor Saunderson, that the content of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee agenda for June 1st, 2020 be adopted as presented. And I'll call that question. All in favor? And that is carried. And I will ask for any business arising from the previous meeting. Does anyone have any business arising from the previous meeting? Seeing none, we will move on to declarations of pecuniary interest. Do any of the members of this committee have a declaration of pecuniary interest to make at this time? And seeing none, we will move on to our staff reports. And the beginning of our staff reports is PRC 2020-06. And I'm going to call on Ms. Martin to talk to us about the floating breakwater. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this staff report is a request for additional funds to that's necessary to build the floating breakwater in the harbor. The existing breakwater is 200 feet long and was initially built and purchased by the Yacht Club. The new floating breakwater will be 250 feet long, and that is due to it having kind of a hockey stick end to provide a little bit more protection from the high water and the winds and the storms that we've been experiencing the last couple of years. Currently, we have 88 dock slips in this area that need to be protected from the weather elements, and this wave break will provide that for the tenants that we currently have. I think that's it. Is there any questions regarding the report?
Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Wendy. So I noticed that just in terms of the dimensions, having been out there and been on the water, the wave break has certainly been quite effective, but it's had problems, I think, because of the stresses on it and some of the construction. I know ours is going to, the new one, what we're anticipating would be 50 feet longer. Would it be wider and more substantial in terms of its bulk to help to break up the waves, or can you help me on that?
Yeah, through the chair, it will be, I'm just looking at the drawing, I believe it's 14 feet wide, and it will definitely be bulkier because the box underneath will be a lot more heavy duty than the existing one.
Okay, and actually, I just saw the CAO's card go up. I don't know if she had something to add to that.
CAO Skinner.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor. I didn't have anything to add to that piece, but there was another set of details on the financials that I think staff had intended to speak to proactively when the chair deems it appropriate.
Okay. And I just had one follow-up question, if I could, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So I know that with the water levels rising so significantly, because probably around the time this was put in, we were at our all-time low, and then the waters went up significantly, and there was, I think, a fair bit of stress on the break wall or wave break because of the water, and we couldn't adjust it. Are we going to have some means in place that we could adjust it, make it easier to adjust so that we wouldn't run into those same issues if the water levels rose to the point where the stress on the chains makes it difficult to unweight the load?
Yes, that's my, sorry, through the chair, that's my understanding is they won't be using actually as many chains that the existing breakwater uses. And they will have more slack to allow for the fluctuations of the water level to make it easier to adjust. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, well, I have a couple, and the one I'd like to start with, though, is 5 years approximately the lifespan for this sort of thing? Because I read in the report, of course, that the first one was installed in 2015 and it failed. It started to fail in 2019. Is that normal? Is 5 years what one can expect from these things? And I suppose that's to you, Ms. Martin.
Yep. So through you, Chair, typically the wave break that we're ordering or we're hoping to order has a 40-year lifespan. 5-year on materials and labors, that's quite common. This wave break was purchased through the yacht club, I believe, designed by the members of the yacht club, built, I think, with some of the members of the yacht club. And yeah, it's not, I'm trying to think of how do I say, it was built with the steel drums underneath, whereas the new one will have a box that will slowly allow water in and out, made very differently. Yeah.
Okay. So we're hesitate to use the word jerry rig. We're happy that the club did what they did, but this is a more professional thing. And you said if you could repeat just that we expect this one to last 40 years?
40, yes, correct. That's correct.
Okay, great. And then the question I had, I'm going to direct this to the CAO and the treasurer as well. So I had some questions earlier today and you've answered them, but I think that the committee may want to hear the answers that I received regarding when the money for this particular project got approved in our budget that was published a few months ago. So I'll direct that to you, CAO Skinner, or to Treasurer Leonard. I don't know which one of you would like to take it.
Through you, Chair. I'd just like to explain that in the initial draft of the budget on the 10-year capital plan, this wave break was included in the 2021 plans, and it was an initial amount of $710,000. And in the various iterations that we had prepared on the budget, it got brought back into 2020 just for the $300,000, and it's come to our attention that we didn't let council know that at the time. It was stuff happens, and also if you look at that budget, you're going to see that both the Sunset Point and the wave break, or the East Harbor docking, had $75,000 each in terms of donations, which we're not going to get. That's a pure typo. But in all instances, this the wave break, regardless of whether it was 2020, 2021, or 2022, it would be fully funded through development charges for 90%, and our 10% non-DC reserve fund for the other 10%. So what we're just trying to do is to bring this to the committee's attention and make sure that we're being as transparent as possible now that we've discovered our little faux pas.
And so just to be very clear, this doesn't have any impact on the final numbers from the 2020 budget. This is money that's being drawn from development charges no matter what. This isn't a taxing thing or anything.
No, you're absolutely correct, Chair. It's fully paid for, funded through development charges and other reserves that we have.
Super, thank you. And I think that's all of my questions. Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Marjorie. So Marjorie, then in terms of our DC's budget, then does that have any impact on any other capital projects that are DC eligible in the coming year?
Through you, Chair. In terms of Wendy's outdoor recreation, it's not going to have an impact on it. What will have an impact on where we go after 2020 is going to be that community benefits charge that we have to figure out how to use. I'm hoping that what will happen is Wendy's outdoor rec DCs will just flow into the pot of community benefit, but that hasn't been made clear yet.
Thank you.
And also requesting to speak with Vice Chair Comey.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I apologize because this question came to me after. So through you, please, to Ms. Martin. Wendy, does the bid include the removal of the existing dock?
Through the chair, yes, it does. We've asked for them to remove it from the water. We're going to leave it in the parking lot because I'm sure that I can have staff disassemble it later in the season. But I didn't want to incur that expense of them disposing of it when we have staff that could do that, you know, over time, not immediately, but at the end of the season.
It's perfect you said that. So thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, back to Ms. Martin, that you brought up disposing of it, because I thought it was an interesting question a resident raised, which is what would we do with all the wood?
Through the chair, I'm sure the Trails Committee would love to see some of it be reused for a boardwalk here or there.
Well, we are a recycling community. Acting Executive Director Culver, working on that one.
You just call me by my last name, Chair. It's probably less time spent. I'd also like to point out too that the wave break is currently owned by the yacht club, so they still have discretionary rights over what will happen with it, which might leave us not having to spend the money on disposal at all. If they wish to float it up to the yacht club basin, for example, and use the 3/4 that are still sound at this point, they may do so, and at their own discretion. So the item in the budget was put in as a discretionary amount in order to prevent against us finding out later that we had to dispose of it. But we're still in conversations with the yacht club, and they may very well take it and use it.
Thank you. And I just to be absolutely clear on what it is that we're approving today, is the recommendation is that we are spending 300,000 plus 95 today. Is that what we're thinking? Is the entire sum? I'll direct that to Ms. Martin.
Yes, that's correct. The 357,295 plus the provisional 39,000 for the removal. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And so if there are no other questions from the members of the committee, I think I will call the question. And so we are going to look at PRC 2020-06, and it is moved by Mayor Saunderson and seconded by Councillor Madigan, that staff report PRC 2020-06, the titled Floating Breakwater, be received, and that council approve the additional funds required for the construction of the floating breakwater. And before I call that question, I see that the clerk has a request to speak. Sarah.
My apologies if I've missed it. Was that open to the public?
Right. I did not offer to anyone to speak. I apologize. Did any one of our attendees wish to speak to this matter?
So we have 2 attendees, and at this point, I have no request to speak, so you're good.
Oh, except for the acting CIO. Acting CIO Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. You had clarified just before the vote that with Ms. Martin that it was for the full amount of the funds required for the construction. So I'm wondering about in the recommended motion, since we've had a little bit of new information, if the word additional could be removed for clarity.
Approve, so would be approve the funds required rather than additional funds. And I'll look to the clerk to see if that's okay. Or do we have to do a full amendment and all the rest of it?
Nope, if the mover and seconder are satisfied.
Councillors, Mayor Saunderson and Councillor Madigan seem fine with that. So we'll take out the word additional and I'll reread it just to be sure. Staff report PRC 2020-06 titled Floating Breakwater be received, and that council approve the funds required for the construction of the floating breakwater. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? And none opposed. Thank you very much. And thank you to Ms. Martin and to Acting Executive Director Culver for their input on that. Next up on our agenda is item number 5.2. And it is PRC 2020-07 special event plan in response to COVID-19. And I believe we're going to be asking the manager of special events, Karen Cubitt, to speak to this today. And there she is. Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you, through you, Chair. This report is a request to alter the 2020 special event plan that was presented to Council through the 2020 budget process. A revised plan has been created in response to COVID-19 because it is our goal to not just cancel things. We need to meet our departmental objectives for special events and everything they can do for our community, but obviously in a manner that is safe for our community and follows all the provincial orders. There's no impact on the budget bottom line, other than we are asking that we take the budgets currently allocated to Canada Day, Side Launch Days, and the Illinois Music Initiative, and be able to sort of reallocate those to present the entire revised 2020 event plan. I've listed what the events would look like and sort of described them. I guess I would ask if there were questions about it, just to save time reviewing all of them, if there are no questions.
Committee, are there any questions regarding the staff report that has come forward? Mayor Saunderson, and then Councillor Vice Chair Comey.
I have a question and then I think a comment through you, Karen. Thank you for that. So I guess the particulars of how we're going to put on these festivals is a little bit fluid, because we're going to be having to respond to provincial dictates and the health unit dictates. So as things progress, these planned delivery modes may change slightly, I would think.
Ms. Cubitt?
Through you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. I mean, our highest level of planning is to just assume that everything has to be 100% virtual. But then we've identified areas where, as the restrictions loosen up, hopefully if they loosen up, that we've got some areas where we can look at more community engagement and some controlled gathering pieces.
And then just my comment, Madam Chair. Certainly through the task force, there was a lot and discussions with some of our key stakeholders like the BIA and the Chamber and others in the community. There's a real desire to keep some of these, well, to keep as many as we can on the radar, so that our public can continue to enjoy these great events, but also have have a sense of upcoming events and gatherings to get our community out and celebrating these great events to the extent we can. So I'm certainly very much in favor of these programs that are redesigned, and hopeful that things will ease a bit to allow even more of an open forum. But if not, I certainly support all of these. And thank you very much, Karen, for that, and to your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sanderson. Vice Chair Comey, you had a question or a comment.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Cubitt. Question, please. And so starting off by saying, well done. It must be so challenging in light of everything to figure all this out. I had asked a question earlier in the week via email just about budget, and I'll share my thoughts. So my thought is, I would think on the one hand, there would be some cost savings because the events are more virtual, and it sounds like a lot of them are kind of hosted through Facebook Live and such. But my other thought on that is, are we still compensating our artists and musicians for their time? Because I'm sure it's a really challenging time for them as well. So are you able to offer any comment on that?
Ms. Cubitt?
Yes, through you, Chair. You're correct. I think we will see some significant cost savings because of the reduction in the contracted services that we need to deliver these events. There will still be costs incurred because, yes, part of this event plan is designed to keep our arts community, our performers, our entertainers, our artists working. And so where there is opportunity, yes, absolutely, we will be reimbursing everyone who contributes to the programming of these events.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm sure, and that furthers the mayor's point there about concern about how we can keep, you know, opportunities flowing to everyone in town. And I can imagine for our musicians and artists and the cancellation of our busker program, it has to be a huge challenge. So I'm so glad to hear that at every opportunity you'll find a way to ensure they're compensated. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Although I believe, and I will look to the clerk. Was I supposed to go to the public first? Yes, that's what I thought. So before I ask for the rest of the committee's comments and questions, I'll ask if any of the attendees are interested in weighing in on this report. And seeing none, well, I'll go back to the committee. Any other questions from the committee? All right, I actually have one as well, and it may seem as though it's a bit too nuts and boltsy for the committee level, but I'm curious to know how it is that we've chosen Facebook versus, say, YouTube or any other platform by which to deliver this sort of programming online. And I'm not sure to whom I should be directing that, probably to you, Ms. Cubitt.
Sure. So Facebook Live was the initial platform we decided to test out the LNO Spotlight series. Mm-hmm. It was chosen because that's where our comfort level was and where we thought we could be successful in trying this new endeavor. It is performing that we were hoping for, but it's not to say that it's the only option. For the Canada Day event specifically, we are looking at a YouTube Live platform, and really for all of these, as they slowly build and get moving, we'll constantly be seeking input from our IT folks, our marketing folks, our communication folks. Nothing is carved in stone. We realize the need to be flexible and to be adaptive as we go and as we roll these out.
Okay, so continuing to learn as we do this. Okay,
100%.
Thank you. And can you give me an idea of how many people have been tuning into these things? So I went on the weekend after your report came out and I was going through the agenda. I went on and looked and watched a bunch of them. I highly recommend it to anybody, but I couldn't really tell how many other people had watched them.
Yes, through you. Recognizing I'm not the expert in this area, but I do have some numbers that were provided to me. So for Spotlight is the only thing that's live right now. We're 5 shows in. I understand the estimated reach as of the end of last week was 13,561. Engagement was at 421. Total minutes viewed was 6,647. Unique views was 551. Peak viewers, so actually watching live, has only peaked at 53. So we still have a long way to go that way. But the encouraging part is that all these additional views are as a result of keeping those videos up and available.
Terrific. Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? All right, then I will call the question. And that is moved by Councillor Madigan and seconded by Councillor Berman. The staff report PRC 2020-07 titled Special Event Plan in Response to COVID-19 be received, and that Council approve the revised PRC Special Event Plan for 2020, and that Council approve the use of budgets currently allocated to the Collingwood Festival for Canada, Side Launch Days, and the Collingwood Live and Original Music Initiative to implement the revised 2020 PRC Special Event Plan. And I will call the vote. All in favor? Terrific. And that is carried. Moving on in our agenda to item number 6, which is reports and minutes of other committees and boards. And I'm going to ask for a motion to approve 6.7 items 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3 together. And then we will hear presentations on items 6.4 and 6.5. And so museum advisory, yes. Okay, so we will ask for, is there anybody who would have a problem with that? Does anybody want to pull one of these items for a discussion? Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question for staff relating to the accessibility committee minutes. And I just wanted to comment. I don't think I need to pull the item and upset the apple cart in terms of the vote. I just wanted an opportunity to ask that one question.
So I looked at the clerk. Do we have to read it in first? Okay, so moved by Councillor Berman and seconded by Councillor Comey. That the minutes of the various committees and boards provided below be received and recommendations contained therein approved. Accessibility Advisory Committee, May 21, 2020. Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management, May 7 and May 20 of 2020. And the Museum Advisory Committee, May 21, 2020. So we will ask if there are any comments or questions regarding that. And here you go, Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you. So through you, and I don't think Director Farr is probably part of this meeting, but on item 7, and the Accessibility Committee minutes, it talks about their involvement in the official plan review process. And I just wanted, and maybe this can come later, but I was hoping through staff to get just an update on how that process is going and making sure that we're covering all various interest groups in our official plan process, and in particular the Accessibility Committee.
Certainly through the chair, I can address that question, even though our chair, Margaret Adolph, is in the background, which I'm sure she can address too. The committee actually is looking at the site plan review versus the official plan review.
Okay.
But once those discussion papers are out for the official plan, I think this will be an item that the committee will be reviewing together. And if we have any feedback regarding the official plan, we will provide our comments through that channel as well.
Great. That answers my question. Thank you.
Terrific. And so I'll call the question, and all of those in favor of receiving these reports. And that is carried. And so now we move on to item 6.4, which is the Trails Advisory Committee year-end report. And I will invite Murray Knowles, the co-chair of the Trails Advisory Committee, to join us. Now, is this a year-end report or a committee-end report, since we've founded a new committee? I wonder.
Yes, it would be both at this particular point in time, for sure.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Is the presentation out there and visible to you?
Here it comes.
Ah, there we go. Okay, I'll go through this as quickly as I can. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just want to review a few things from 2019 and then also provide a bit of a list of things that are sort of on our agenda for 2020. So if we go to the next slide. Just a map showing where the major things were done in the Trails Network in the past year. I'll just talk to one of the very left-hand side of the screen there, which is out in the George Christie Nature Trail area. We continue to work out there. There still are some trails that suffer from a little bit more water than we would like to see them have in the spring and in the early summer. So we keep working at trying to get all of those trails up to speed so that they're all usable basically 12 months of the year. Okay, next slide. So some of the major things that happened, obviously Highway 26, major sidewalk / multi-purpose trail on the north side of the highway there. An excellent completion for the people in the east end of town. And quite clearly, we now have a pretty safe bicycle route that'll take us right from the Wasaga Beach boundary right into downtown Collingwood. Next. Kind of the signature project for this past year that was completed. It's on the River Trail. The trail was narrowing rather noticeably in the one spot, crowning. It was becoming a bit of a safety hazard in our opinion. So the work was done there to widen it, put up the railing. In addition, we had some people make comments that it was tough to get up that slope to the river trail. And it was requested that we put in a staircase with a railing. There are a lot of people from Raglan Village, some of our more elderly citizens use that particular trail, so we have put in the staircase with the railing to allow people to get there a little bit easier. Next. Complete resurfacing of the Taylor Creek Trail. This was done by the Parks and Rec staff, and they did an excellent job of it. Out in the west end of town, our boardwalk builders were, volunteer boardwalk builders were out in force again this year and probably added another 100 feet or so to the boardwalk out in that neck of the woods. And as I think Wendy Martin alluded to early on, if there's some wood left over from something, we'd probably be glad to get our hands on it, and we can repurpose that to extend boardwalks even farther. Next. The other three key things, obviously the cycling plan the town is aware of. We had lots of input into that and look forward to, I'll say, the evolution of the Trails Committee into a Trails and Active Transportation Committee to get this cycling plan really rolling. The other thing is a new trails map that came out last year. Just a bit of a comment on that. First of all, just a reminder, this is totally funded by the advertisers. There is no cost to the town for this one. We also decided to change a little bit this past year, and we're now doing a new map every year. In the past, we kind of made up a whole bunch of copies of one, and they tended to last for 2.5 years. But now we're going to be doing it on an annual basis. And the main reason for that is we want to get into the digital world as well. So the digital map and the paper map need to be more or less in sync. So you can't wait 2.5 years to do one again. And the last thing on that slide, just another one of our interpretive signs there. If you're out in behind the Cranberry Golf Course, there's a very large rock out there, which is an erratic left over from the glacial age, which we've put a little sign in front of. Next. The bonus for us this year, which I have to say we had nothing to do with as a Trails Committee really, is the Hamilton Drain pedestrian crossing at here Ontario Street. This is great for the kids, obviously, getting to school. But the other thing is too, of course, the Hamilton Drain Trail is a major east-west cycling corridor as part of the cycling plan. So having this crossing of here Ontario Street properly signed and signaled and everything is an added bonus. And next. And then on the downside, too much water. And we still have more problems, I guess, this year than last year in the past, or sorry, this past year than the year before. It used to be there were water issues when the wind was blowing heavily from the north. Now it's just water issues all the time. So we still struggle with that. The Hens and Chickens Trail and on the Sunset Point Park Trail. And next. Okay, just moving quickly now into 2020 and some of the things that we're hoping to do this year. I'm going to be a little bit presumptuous on some of these because the Trails Committee, of course, is officially no more, and it is the Trails and Active Transportation Committee now. However, the Trails Committee was quite involved in many of those items, and so they have their opinions on some of the things. You'll see some trails items in this, and you'll see some more active transportation items in here as well. So next slide. First and most important thing is to get the Trails and Active Transportation Committee up and running. We now have the members all established. The first meeting will take place next week. And I guess our goal is to hopefully make this new committee as effective and hopefully as well respected as I believe the Trails Committee has been in the past. Next. The two major construction things that are on the books. One is the Hens and Chickens Trail reconstruction. The money was in the budget for that, and hopefully all the COVID-19 activities will not change that. The other one that is there is the Central Park Trail. And this is really an active transportation item. It's meant to essentially connect the bike lanes on Hume Street safely through Central Park out to the bike lanes on 6th Street. And once completed, this will allow us to basically have a complete connection right from the Wasaga Beach boundary on the east, right through to Ulster Bluff Road on the west. We have applied to Simcoe County for partial funding for that particular trail, and we're just waiting to hear back on that. The other items that are shown up there, additional pedestrian crossings, obviously hoping to get some of those from an active transportation point of view. We are aware that the Niagara Street and Huron Street crossing, I believe, has been funded and approved, and it's my understanding there is additional funding in there for perhaps 1 or 2 more. We have provided our input as to which ones we think are most important from a trails perspective, so hopefully those will move forward as well. And also signage and pavement markings. This is one that I think we all believe is rather important to us. We have a cycling plan now, and I believe it's very important for the people of the town to see things show up that are clear demonstrations to them that we're serious about doing this active transportation. So just putting up the signage and improving on our pavement markings on some of our existing bike routes, in my opinion, will go a long way to providing that demonstration to our residents. Next. We'll continue to work on the George Christie Nature Trails, as I've mentioned earlier. And I'd just like to talk about, again, resurfacing. We did one major resurfacing last year, and it is becoming more important, I think, for us to resurface some of our additional trails and to widen them. Certainly COVID-19 and our 6-foot social distancing makes it more important for having trails that are only 6 feet wide. It's pretty tough for 2 people to pass each other safely. But in addition, I know that there have been some, I'll use the word complaints from a couple of residents on, I'll say from cyclists who complain about pedestrians walking down the middle of the trail, from pedestrians complaining about cyclists who do not ring a bell when they're coming up from behind, and probably both groups complaining about dogs not on leashes. The bottom line is all 3 of those groups need to use the trails, and we need to have them share the trail. And it becomes very difficult for them to do that if the trail is narrowing too much. So we'd really like to spend some additional time this year and widen some of our trails and get them back out to the desired 10-foot width. Next. It's my understanding, again, there are a couple of downtown bicycle parking shelters in the works for this year. I believe it's been folded into a downtown rehab project that I think Martin is working on. But that will go a long way as well to, I guess, help demonstrate that we want to be serious about cycling within the town of Collingwood. Next. 2020 trail map. It's already been prepared and it's out there in the field now. We also want to get into the digital map this year. We have provided all of our input through to Lindsay in the IT, and hopefully she can create some time for us to get this digital map up and running so that we can over time convert ourselves away from paper maps into more of the digital version of the map on people's cell phones, etc. And next. Design work. This is a bit of a wish item here, but I believe from a cycling plan point of view, most people, if you talk to them, would probably see the cycling routes as being either bike lanes on streets or trails such as the train trail as major corridors within the town. There are other options in there that are, I'll use the word, a little bit more innovative and perhaps a little bit more radical that we would like to take a look at. Certainly to create bike lanes on an existing, I'll say, normal residential street does involve waiting for the road to be widened a little bit so that the space is there. There are some other, I'll use the word, innovative design concepts that would avoid having to do that. And I think we'd like to see some of those we'd like to come up with a couple of suggestions on those. Let's leave it at that. And last but not least, we'd like to advance the Collingwood to Village Trail route. There is work underway now through the WSP consultant. They are in contact with the NVCA trying to determine the best route to cross Silver Creek. And we're also trying very hard. It's becoming difficult to contact some of the landowners who might be impacted by that. But the work is underway and hopefully it will continue to advance so we're ready to go on that particular route. And that's what I have. So thank you very much for your time. If there are any questions, I will gladly answer them.
Committee, do we have any questions for Mr. Knowles regarding the year-end committee end roundup that we just received? Well, clearly a very comprehensive report. Are there any questions from attendees about that report? I'll defer to the clerk on that one. I almost got it. I almost had it in the right order.
There's nobody able to speak, wishing to speak.
All right then. Do we need to vote on accepting that report or did we just accept it by having it? Vice Chair Comey.
I'm so sorry. I had a major technical difficulty and I lost the screen and everybody was gone. So thank you so much. I apologize. I did have a question, please, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Knowles. Is it the 2020 map that had the water stations added to it in conjunction with Jennifer Parker, or was that the 2019 map?
Mr. Knowles?
Geez, if you can give me 1 second, I quickly grab a 2020 map, I can tell you. Not seeing the water stations on the 2019 map. And I just have to, if you give me a chance to quickly disappear for a second,
Yeah.
back, I'll get a 2020 map.
Awesome.
Perhaps Chris could give us a musical interlude while we read. Or perhaps the mayor can give us a song.
You know, a quick cursory look, I'm not seeing them on the 2020 map either. I do see the washrooms.
Oh,
Bike repair
good.
stations.
Yeah.
But I am not seeing the water stations.
Executive Director Culver, I think, needs to weigh in on this.
No, I don't need to weigh in much, just to say that I do know for a fact, I wasn't 100% sure they were on the printed version, but on the digital version, there was a water station part of the digital overlays. It's been removed right now simply because of COVID and wanting to make sure that we're giving people the right instruction online. But that definitely was part of Lindy's work last year, guided by Jennifer.
Yeah, that would make good sense, right? It would seem to make a good integration to, if you're out cycling, to know where you could refill your water bottle. And I just wanted, if I can, Madam Chair, I just wanted through you to Mr. Knowles to say, I'm sure the Trails Committee would agree now more than ever. Our residents are absolutely so grateful to have this trail system. If they haven't thought about it before or had a chance to spend time on it, I'm sure they have in recent weeks. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the new committee to be launching. And I think those 10 goals are really, really exciting and are a good reflection of what our residents are saying as well. So thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Comey. Any other comments from members of the committee? And I would echo Vice Chair Comey's comments and say that I'm pretty sure that Mr. Knowles and the rest of the committee can feel the blessings falling upon them every day as people walk the trails and say, oh, I'm so happy, bless the people who did this. So thank you. And so I look to the clerk. Do we need to have a motion to receive that report? Or we just say thank you, Mr. Knowles, and we move on to the next report. Okay, so we're moving on to item number 6.5, and that is the accessibility Advisory Committee and a discussion regarding National Accessibility Week. And I believe we're going to hear from Margaret Adolph, but I believe we're speaking to the clerk first. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just do a brief introduction. We have Margaret Adolph, that's our chair of our Accessibility Advisory Committee. And I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with Margaret. She was an Order of Collingwood recipient this year. Her and her husband are quite active in the community, and she's obviously very involved with accessibility within the town of Collingwood, and is always one of the very first people to volunteer to help with anything, any initiative or program or service that we're offering. So Margaret has a brief presentation today. So she's also going to give a little bit of an update about the Accessibility Committee as well, in light of it being National Accessibility Week. I'll just make sure that we've got Margaret on board here. Yeah, so Margaret should be there.
Hello, and thank you.
Hello, I'm here.
All right. Well,
I just got Zoom showing me.
So you should be able to see Ms. Adolph on your screen, the PowerPoint that's been prepared.
Yes, I can't see anything.
No, you won't see any of us once the screen has been shared.
Okay.
It's just the screen. It's just that screen that will be visible. So so everything's working the way that it's supposed to be, even if you can't see the rest of us.
I can't see any of the pages. I just see Zoom.
Oh, you don't see the PowerPoint that was prepared?
I don't see the PowerPoint now.
Oh, drat.
Do you have a hard copy of it with you, Margaret?
I do.
All right, so we'll advance the slides for you if you want to go through the hard copy. We can see you.
Oh, you can you?
We can.
That's good. Okay, well, first of all, thank you. And hello to Madam Chair McLeod, Mayor Brian Saunderson, and of course, Sarah Almas. Thank you for that introduction. That was more than I expected. And the councillor, staff, and guests. I'm here today to share the Collingwood Accessibility Advisory Committee updates, and I have to say some of our successes. And also, as Sarah pointed out, the National Accessibility Week, May the 31st to June the 6th, 2020. And next page, I can't see this, but presentation overview. We're going to look at the ODA, the AODA, and IASR, committee mandates, committee membership, committee activities and progress, and National Accessibility Week, okay? It's very interesting to point out that in Ontario, the first in the world with mandatory accessibility standards for organization. Now we're going to look at the AODA. What is it? Well, the AODA Act was based off of the 2001 Ontarians with Disability Act. The Ontario government decided to further elaborate on this act, and therefore in 2005, the Accessibilities for Ontarians and Disability Act, AODA, came into effect, making Ontario the first province to enact such groundbreaking legislation. The act has it's used, when you read it, it says it's from 2005 to 2025. The Act's purpose is to create accessibility standards that organizations from the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors must follow and make an accessible province for all Ontarians. In 2007, the Customer Service Regulation was established, creating accessibility standards for customer service and compliance states for public sector organizations, as well as organizations that provide goods or services to the members of the public. So it's a very comprehensive act, and You know, all new buildings are governed by the AOD Act to make them accessible. One of the things that I remember very clearly in about 2010 was looking at places like Collingwood that had buildings that were built in the 1800s. And of course, as you know, there was no wheelchairs or things like that. So we had to look at our buildings. But I've always told people Collingwood has done a magnificent job, and they've done excellent in making sure that the buildings are accessible, even down here on Ontario Street. So I don't know where the next slide is. I'm bringing up the AODA. What is it? So you'll notice there's the Accessibility for Ontarians with the Disabilities of the 2005. And then it goes into accessibility standards for customer service regulations and integrated accessibility standards regulation. On it goes to customer service, and then general requirements, information, communications, employment standard, transportation, and the design of public spaces. And this is all to prevent and remove barriers for people with disabilities. We'll move on. Next slide. Committee mandate to the AODA. The role of the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee is to provide advice to the municipal government on a wide range of municipal processes to help make public services and facilities accessible to everybody. We have a number of responsibilities. The three main ones are the activity of the Accessibility Advisory Committee to advise the Municipal Council about the requirements and implementation of accessibility standards. And they're very clear. The Act is very clear. The preparation of the accessibility reports, other matters for which the Council may seek its advice, participation in site plans review and drawings as selected. Somebody might come to us and ask us to change their front entrance. And of course, that would be a site plan that we might review to look at if people with wheelchairs, etc., can get, they'll be able to use get into the place. Perform all other functions that are specific in the regulations. Now, our committee, we have 7 committee members. There's me, there's Rosalind Steele, Cheryl Ann Monahan, Heather Grossman, Martina Ernst, Robin Sheldon, Vanessa McDonald. And I want to also thank to our previous members, Jack Sim and Jocelyn Richards. We've done a lot with accessibility, and last year we supported and advised on the Universal Change Room facility at the Centennial Aquatic Center. I think a few of the people, the counselors, were there, and we participated in a ribbon cutting ceremony. I talked to some people, I guess a few months ago before things were closed down, and I understand the change room has been well received, and especially welcome for the people who need that second person to help them with their needs. So I'm really pleased that we were able to make this happen. Provided advice and support to municipal capital projects. We're also involved with significant projects, including Sunset Point Park, the docks, and of course the bus shelter on Pine Street. And we also look at education and awareness. The farmers market booth, each year, unfortunately, I don't know if we'll be able to do it this year, but each year we have a booth, and we try and give away maybe an apple or some candies, and then we ask the people, to give us advice, and we get lots of suggestions, and believe it or not, lots of congratulations. I'm really always amazed how many people say, you're doing a great job, and That's always nice to hear. We also have the National Accessibility Week trade show with the library. And that's been a big success because we've had a number of businesses that deal with hearing and sight and different service providers. And we do this with the library. And I have to point out that the library has done an amazing job with accessibility. There's nothing that is left untouched. And I'm really proud of the library for what they've done. And we also respond to barrier concerns in accordance with the policy. And we try and get some town hall window displays every so often. So the members have participated in training and various municipal public engagements. Next page. So the committees and activities and initiatives. Currently, the committee is working on the following: finalizing our multi-year accessibility strategic plan for public comment. I think you're all going to like what you see. I talk about the successes, and we certainly are doing great in Collingwood. Collaborating with planning services regarding the committee's participation in the site plan process. We also are investigating a community and American Sign Language and training opportunities. And as is at the end of this, I'll show you how to say please and thank you, okay? In alignment with our draft multi-year accessibility strategic plan, we are going to focus on education, training, and advocacy. I think it's interesting that we educate the people, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and train them to make sure that everybody is well looked after. Continue to work with staff on capital projects that require consultation with the committee. So we have next page. Now we're looking at National Accessibility Week. It started yesterday and it's on for the whole week. And next, the history is National Accessibility Awareness Week was established in 1987 following Rick Hansen's 40,000 kilometer Man in Motion World Tour. Can you imagine going around in a wheelchair 40,000 kilometers? I can't. The purpose of the program was to promote better communication, community access for people with disabilities. So I want to say, together, let's take action to build an inclusive and accessible Collingwood. This week is an opportunity to celebrate the valuable contributions of residents of Collingwood and Canadians with disabilities, to recognize the efforts of individuals, communities, and workplaces that are actively working to remove barriers to accessibility and inclusion. We certainly all benefit from a society and an economy without barriers to inclusion. When persons with disabilities can participate in all aspects of society, including accessing employment, resources, and services, it enriches our economy. And I know in Collingwood, even with some of our staff, we've been able to do that. And we've got some excellent staff that requires some help, and that's amazing. However, next slide, please. In light of COVID-19, the town has continued to help the social supports, including networking to align needs with service providers to ensure individuals, including those with disability, maintain their health, safety, and dignity. We're going through some difficult times, and I look forward to an end of all of this COVID-19, as I'm sure everybody else does. This year's celebration activities across the country for the National Accessibility Week will be limited to virtually all the communication activities to reflect public health instructions. And the town and the library will also be sharing social media posts. And I'm sure, now I'm going to show you, I'm going to say, please, I'm going to rub my chest here. That's sign language for please. Remember to wash your hands, physical distance, stay home, respect gathering restrictions, and wear masks if you can't maintain physical distance. Let's look after and protect one another. If you're aware of an accessibility barrier with any municipality, facility, program, or service, let us know. We're here to help you. You can call the clerk at Collingwood, or you can email clerk@collingwood.ca, or dial the number 705-445-1030 or www.collingwood.canada. Let's change the way we think, talk, and act about accessibility and inclusion. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I see you all.
There you are.
There I am.
And so we will turn to the attendees and see if there is anyone who would like to ask Ms. Adolph a question about the presentation that has just been concluded. And we see none. And so are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Adolph? Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Margaret. Thank you to you and your committee, Margaret, for all the great work you do. As you may know, Collingwood's involved with the UN on Sustainable Goal number 11, and that's to create safe and inclusive communities. And so this is very much a part of that inclusiveness. But I also wanted to give you a shout out, being a water sports fan. You and your committee were instrumental in influencing Director Culver when he was acting as Director of Parks and Rec to make sure that we have an accessible boat launch that will be going over at Harborview Park, so that people can launch kayaks and other watercraft. So it's accessible to all. So that's giving the waterfront to the community. So I wanted to thank your committee for that as well, and hope you put that on your slides and boast more about that coming forward. But thank you, Margaret, to you and your committee.
Yes, yes, I agree. We talked about that boat launch and the kayaks, and that's a great, and now that the water's even up higher, it's going to be easier, I think, for them to get into the boats. So yes, and did I say at the beginning I was going to talk about the advisory committee updates and successes, and that's a success. So I think we're doing a great job. So, but so is Collingwood. I continually mention to people, and I've had people come up and say, gee, you do things really right around here, and they come from different areas in Simcoe County, and I said, absolutely. So
thank you for that, Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, so I will say, yes, I would like to ask a question. And I was hoping to have our little educational session with Ms. Adolph. You were going to teach us how to say thank you.
Well, thank you is thank you.
Like
Thank
this?
you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And if you go like this, please.
Please. Okay. Super. Yes, I agree. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Adolph. Thank you, Ms. Adolph. Okay.
You can do it with one hand too.
Okay. Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your
having me.
time and for the time that you put into the committee. And so that brings us to the end of our reports and minutes of other committees and boards. And we move on to item number 7 on our agenda, which is departmental updates and discussion. And item 7.1 is the status of the Collingwood Sailing School. And while your agenda says that it will be the Acting Executive Director of Customer and Corporate Service, Dean Culver, who will be making this presentation, that is not actually the truth. We are going to be hearing from the Acting Director of Parks and Recreation, which is Mel Milanovic. And here he is now, I hope. His screen is black though. Ah, there he is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give you a little update on the sailing school. I'll also include the museum camp in that, unfortunately. The following programs have been canceled for this year: sailing school and museum camps. Both programs cancellations were directly related to COVID-19 and the challenges we face with operating programs within the provincial order. We were unable to hire instructors as the sailing school instructors we would have to hire would have to get fully certified, which we're unable to do at this time. Social distancing issues with children in small vessels, along with rescuing procedures, sanitation requirements at facilities, we were unable to meet. With the museum camps, physical distancing, once again, amongst staff and children, sanitation of craft supplies and equipment and facilities themselves. Unfortunately, it's not a position I want to be sitting in and cancel camps for children and programming, but this is where we're at with COVID-19. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members of the public? Any of the attendees have questions for Acting Director Milanovic? Seeing none, do we have any questions or comments from members of the committee? And seeing none, I will say thank you very much, Acting Director Milanovic, and I'm very sorry to hear this news, as I'm sure are many parents and anyone who wants this to be over sooner rather than later. And so we will move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is public delegations. 5 minutes per delegation. And do we have, Clerk Almas, do we have any attendees who are wishing to have anything to say? And I don't have to give out the phone number this time. That's awesome. Thank you. And that brings us to other business, item number 9. Is there any other business from this committee? Anything pressing that we need to discuss today? Vice Chair Comey.
Thank you. Sometimes spacebar works, sometimes it doesn't. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, please, I would think to Acting Director Milanovic. First, like I say, a star and a wish. The pitches over at Fisher look fantastic. They're so beautifully mowed. It's heartbreaking to know we won't have a season out there, but nice to see that the province did open the fields. I have a question about the pitches, which is, have we not mowed inside the goals to discourage play, or we just haven't got to it yet?
Director Milanovic.
Through you, the chair, I would like to address, can we pull up Wendy Martin? If she's available.
Sure, thank you for the question, and through the chair. In talking with staff, the grass is growing so fast right now. So I think it's just due to trying to keep up with all the other duties. And because soccer is not being played, it's not at the highest of the level of priority. So it hasn't that we've forgotten about them. It's just, yeah, we're so bombarded with the speed that the grass is growing right now.
And it looks fantastic. And I was just curious if that was a strategy to discourage play or whatever, but truly they are beautiful pitches and they're very well maintained. So thank you so much for that. And on that subject, to you, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure who would like to take this, though. It might be Executive Director Culver or whom. Do we have any feedback from our grant administrator at the province with regard to our grant application for Fisher?
And would I direct that to Executive Director Culver or to Director Milanovic? Who would like that?
I don't mind answering it.
There we go.
Go, Mel.
Through you, the chair. In discussions with the Regional Development Advisor, we were told that the government priorities were shifted toward combating COVID-19, and that it will take a little longer for them to focus their energies toward making a decision. The RDA's analysis was completed and a recommendation was presented. In the last discussion, with the minister, they were informed that the decision will be might be announced in late spring, early summer. So fingers crossed, hopefully soon.
Fingers crossed for sure. And then, Madam Chair, a follow-up on that though, if I understand correctly, you're still, somebody is still bundling up a bid package to go out with an if-then scenario for this whole thing?
Director Culver or Executive Director Culver?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So yes, we've been continuing to work on the tender documents. The opportunity of time has given us the chance to get into some pretty minute detail, which is excellent when it comes to sending bids out. So yeah, we're prepared in either direction. Actually, I think June 15th was when we planned for the final tender documents to be ready. So that's what we're shooting towards. And if we get an announcement, we can go in one direction. And if we get a contrary announcement, we can go in the other direction.
Does that assist, Vice Chair Comey?
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful news. Like, congratulations. I'm so excited. Madam Chair, I have a couple more items under other business. Would you like me to continue or?
Yes,
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to place them to you and let you field them accordingly. My question is just, it's been a minute since we've heard any feedback on the Pretty River Parkway medians. And why that came to mind is we know what a great job our Pollinate Collingwood group is doing. So I didn't know if someone would like to tell us when, as a committee, we might hear some direction on what might be some possibilities out there.
I am going to suggest that it'll be Acting Director Milanovic who can answer that, or will it be Executive Director Culver? Acting Director Milanovic.
I can address the day-to-day operations. I'm not too familiar with the pollinating group. I'm sure I can defer to Acting Executive Director Culver. But the day-to-day operations staff will continue to trim the weeds and mulch, and it will add some mulch to hopefully reduce the weed growth. Staff safety has been the core to this program, so we would not wish to advise a volunteer group to do anything that we deem hazardous for staff. Further, soils and traffic conditions in these areas and also exhaust fumes don't make an ideal location for pollinator gardens. Staff are working with the pollinators, I know, on several other locations that were probably more appropriate.
Does that assist, Vice Chair Comey?
It does, and I just wonder, Madam Chair, and I'm sure other members of the committee recall, there was a whole bunch of ideas being batted around, and there was talks of banners and other ideas. I don't know if we're just waiting for that staff report to come back to us. Well, it sounds like Dean has it.
Executive Director Culver.
Dean or Culver is perfect. So we brought a report back to council, and council approved a design layout for the median, the Parkway median, and we're basically just we're holding on to that design for when funding becomes available. It didn't make it into this year's capital budget, so we're not moving forward with the design in 2020. We'll present it again in 2021 for the redesign of the Parkway, and at that time we can move forward. We'd love to see, we had banners were part of an original presentation that we made to the committee. But after that, we focused on the concrete strip and trying to develop the micro garden approach and left the banners off that program. But having said that, I think in this time, especially when we're looking at messaging that could be around COVID, and we have sort of limited opportunities to add color and whatnot, the banners would still be something that could be useful. And we have what's called a flag track system proposal in front of us. So we could be looking at coming to council for some funding to help do something that way in the Parkway while we're waiting for the opportunity to do the full $200,000 project.
Vice Chair Comey?
That's a great update. Thank you so much. And just ticking off my list here, Madam Chair, I was wondering if anyone could offer us a status on the dockside mural, talking about color and art and cheeriness.
Would that be Acting Director Milanovic?
Actually, I see Manager of Culture and Events is still here, Karen Cubitt. She'll probably do a better job than I would.
Ms. Cubitt.
Thank you, through you, Chair McLeod. So we have gone through the public art commissioning process. We've reached a point in the process where we've had to hit pause. The Public Art Committee was not able to reach a consensus on the selection of the artwork for the location that was identified. The mural favored by the committee was not supported as a choice by the ownership of the building. Therefore, the Public Art project will not be moving forward at this location. Instead, the Public Art Committee has provided some input on potential alternate locations for the top rank artwork, and staff are in the process of exploring some of those options. And an update will come back to council once a new site has been vetted with ownership on board. And then at that point, the next phase of the Public Art commissioning process will resume.
Vice Chair Comey.
Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, that wasn't the update I was thinking of. So I guess then, not anticipating that answer, the follow-up I think of through you, Madam Chair, is Ms. Cubitt, where did that leave the artist in terms of compensation? Do we have an artist thinking they were potentially, you know, about to land a very big commission and now they're without a project?
Ms. Cubitt?
Through you, Chair. The artist was notified that they were the top ranked artist. At the same time, we indicated to them that the location had fallen through. The artist is still very interested in doing a mural and will adjust their design ideas to a different location and the specific specs of that. So yes, we still anticipate commissioning a piece with this artist, but no money has gone out yet. And we're still very positive that we can see this right through to the end.
I appreciate that answer. You know what, Madam Chair, if you will, it's going to tie into my next comment, which was, I think as a community, we can all see, it's my impression on all the feedback I've heard, that the graffiti project has been a smash success. It is lifting spirits. It is beautiful. It is everything our public is happy to see right now. So I hope you're able to come to committee sooner than later and we can see more art projects. It really breaks my heart to hear there's an artist that potentially had a possibility to move forward and now they're in a holding pattern. I see lots of walls and laneways and buildings. So please, I hope lots of these ideas come to us so we can put this town filled with talented artists an opportunity to paint the town one end to the other.
Executive Director.
Absolutely.
If I could just add in to further Councillor Comey's point, so there were 5 proponents that were actually compensated for designs within the public art process. So even though 4 of the proponents were not the successful at the end, all 5 of them received compensation for producing designs, and it's a bit of a, I would say, a code within the Parks and Rec department that artists are paid. We never go down the path of this is good for you for promotion or anything like that. It is always about compensating artists because they're professionals and they do a job. So that's been our standard forever. So just so hopefully there's some confidence around that. We will always try to make sure that artists are properly looked after.
Oh, I'm sure. That's very good to hear. Good. Thank you so much. And okay, I have one more. It's from a resident. They're going to be thing if I don't ask, please. So as Madam Chair, as we continue to see the reduction in parking, particularly at Sunset, I'm wondering if anywhere where we're reducing parking, we're thinking along the lines of, well, let's double the bike racks. I'm not sure what role PRC has in this versus over Director Slama, who isn't on this call, but if anyone on the call can speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Executive Director Culver.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sort of straddling a little bit and we're working my way out of the role. So I apologize for stepping in maybe too often, but through you, Chair. So certainly we've gone a long way with this latest upgrade, I guess, to Sunset Point, tied in with the remediation of the damage. So Sunset Point's not done by a lot. And so certainly bike racks are something that have to be replaced in this year. We have bike racks that are normally there that aren't there right now, and they will be replaced. We have bike racks that we are looking at on the south side of the road to be a part of the playground upgrade as well. So there is a lot of bike facilities planned. We're not done now just because the remediation is done, and you'll see incremental increases over time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you to all, and thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me get all that out.
There we go. So any other business from members of this committee? Excellent. And so I believe this brings us to our final motion of this meeting, which is moved by Councillor Comey, that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee hereby be adjourned. And do we have a vote on that? I'll call the question. Thank you. This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you for all the assistance and thank you. Good night.